Why is making a fursuit so hard? Taking flat 2D sheets of foam and turning them into a 3D sculpture is a dark art. Hi, I'm Waffles, and a few years ago I started to learn how to make my own fursuits. Since then, I've made plenty of mistakes. Today, I wanted to share 5 of my favorite fursuit making tips and tricks to make the process just a little bit easier. Creating a foam head base is one of the hardest and most challenging parts about building a fursuit. It's the foundation, the starting point of the entire head. In this video, I'll walk you through some tips and tricks for making a foam head base. There are 2 major types of head bases for fursuits, foam and 3D printed. Today, I'm focused mostly on the dark art of foam sculpting, but if you're using a 3D printed base, a lot of these tips will still apply too. And always remember, the single best way to improve is to practice and to build that experience. The first tip that I want to talk about is prototyping and planning. So, one of the reasons why making a fursuit is so challenging is that it takes a lot of time and a lot of money. The solution to this is to create miniature, small, half-size models before you jump into your main foam base. And what I mean by that is that these are quite literally just a normal fursuit head, except I've shrunk it to about 1/4 the size. And that allows you to make several of them, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and then apply it to your full-size costume when you get to that process. It's important to focus on basic shapes, basic forms, and just getting it together as opposed to any sort of fancy detail like pickable noses or how the eye is going to be. You're just focused on the basic process of getting the head together. Not only is this way more approachable than building a full-size head from scratch, it's a lot easier too because when you do make mistakes, and you almost certainly will, you can just throw this away, start over on a second one, learn from this, and then move on to your full-size head way more empowered than if you just started there from scratch. Oftentimes too, I find one of the hardest parts about starting a project is the intimidation factor. Building something that's small and easy like this is way less intimidating than starting on a full head yourself if you've never started. This gives you just a basic idea of how the process is to go, and you can do it in an afternoon as opposed to a whole week for a normal head. The second tip that I have for you today is to get a new perspective. I want you to take your fursuit and try to look at it from as many angles as you can. From up close, from far away, from across the room, from on your phone, just anything you can do to get a new perspective on your costume. While viewing your fursuit, you should be focusing on edges, the basic forms of the costume, the kind of general shape of it. You're looking at the forest instead of the individual trees. Most of the time when people see fursuits, it won't be really close and up and personal. Instead, it'll be from across the room or a few feet away. And that's always something to keep in mind when building these. You'll spend a lot of effort on these little kind of super nice details, but in the end of the day, most people will never even notice them or see them, especially on a foam base where you figure all this will be covered in fur eventually. If you do ever get to the point where you feel stuck and you don't know what to do, when in doubt, just sleep on it. Making a fursuit is a challenging process and can take months and months and months of work. I know it seems like, especially with the professional makers out there, that you can do it in a weekend, but it's just not possible. I promise you, I've tried. Now, instead, if you're ever feeling burnt out, take a break, take a rest on it, and then come back with a fresh mindset, and you'll be way more likely to succeed. It's amazing how often you can look at a problem, completely get burnt out on it, and then come back the next day and solve it almost instantly. Shameless plug, if you are looking for a place to talk about fursuit making and share your costumes, I have a link to a Discord and Telegram group below. It's my fursuit making chat. It's really successful. It's full of a lot of fun and cool people, and it's a great place to talk about how to make costumes and sharing your ideas there. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in there and I'll be happy to answer your questions. The third tip that I have for you today is to have a process. There is an art to starting over. There's a trick to always be improving, where instead of throwing away 100% of your work, try to find the single worst aspect about it. Ask yourself, how can you throw away that, improve it, and then start over on that little section of it. That way, you're always moving forward while fixing the single biggest pain point of your costume going each time. This is called an iterative design process, and it's a great way to kind of self-check yourself as you build something. You look at it, you ask yourself, what is a way I can improve this? You improve it, and then you start over. And as long as you keep cycling this process, eventually you'll come out with a much higher quality product than if you just ended it right away. A lot of the best artists out there are able to self-critique themselves in a way not to tear themselves down, but instead to find and improve their own artwork. And we can do the same thing here with foam basing, with creating a foam base. When looking at your foam base, you might say, ooh, the worst part about it is the ears. So you take it, add new ears, and then when you look at it again, now you say, the ears are looking good, but the nose is definitely the worst part. And from there, you can fix the nose and move on. As long as you keep repeating this process, eventually the final product will look probably nothing like what your starting product did, but way better from along the way of design processes and design processes. The process doesn't have to be complicated, it just needs to work for you. As long as you feel that your effort going in it is worth it for the improvements you're getting out of it, I would just keep going and basically build it as best you possibly can. Next up, I have the fourth tip, and it's arguably the most important. It's to use references. We stand on the shoulder of giants. And what I mean by that is that there are a lot of fursuit makers out there who are amazing and put their whole process out there. Odds are your favorite fursuit maker has a social media feed full of examples and tutorials and how to do their own kind of stuff that you can reference for your own artwork. Odds are if you're a new fursuit maker, you still don't really know what you're doing, so it's really important to go out there, find references, find examples, and copy those in order to make your own unique version. When you find a fursuit out there that you really like, it's important to study from it and ask yourself why. Why does it look like that? Why did the fursuit maker do this or that when they created it? Really study from it and learn how to replicate that in your own artwork. When you find 4 or 5 different artists out there, you can mix all their stuff into something totally new and create that as your own kind of style. And when talking about references, don't just look at fursuits, instead look at the real animal. For example, if you're building a fox fursuit, it should look like a fox. It shouldn't look like a wolf or a coyote or any other generic canine, and it's important to look at real references of actual animals in order to do that. You can study skulls, look at videos, take photos of nature. You can do all sorts of stuff to really improve your artwork by using references, especially that come from life. All the best artists out there, they know the muscles, they know the bones, they know all the structure. Even if they don't know the names for them, they know they're there, I promise you that. Because remember, if you want to create something toony and stylized, you first really need to know the basics and the rules in order to break them. In the end, I think using references is one of the most important parts because it's the only truly way to get better. Studying different examples, learning from life, and learning from your fellow artists is one of the easiest ways to improve your own craft and give back to the community in such a way that everyone can learn together. Now finally, my fifth and final tip is tools and materials. The barrier to entry for creating a fursuit is lower now than it's ever been before. There are tons of guides out there, tutorials, Patreons, fursuit maker accounts. There's so much information out there for creating your own costume. If you don't know where to start, I recommend with Fursuit's head pattern. That's where I started, and it works as a gentle introduction for building a foam base. There are a ton of other patterns out there too, so don't be afraid to experiment and find one that best fits your style. As for materials, my top 3 materials are regular 1-inch upholstery foam, scrap cardboard for prototyping, and finally paper for templating. It's nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just regular stuff that you have laying around. Finally, for tools, my top 3 tools are a basic pair of scissors, cheap yellow sewing pins, and finally a wireless hot glue gun. Frankly, you don't need a wireless hot glue gun, a regular wired one works, but having the flexibility and no wire does make the process a lot easier. Next, some quick tips. If your pins ever get stuck and glued down and hard to remove, grab a pair of pliers and pull them out. Just make sure to double and triple check that you've removed every pin. There's no fear quite like realizing there's still some pins inside the head when you go to put it on. Another handy tip is to keep a trash can nearby while carving foam. Those tiny chunks of foam get everywhere, and having a place to toss them while cleaning up makes things way easier. One of the best things about making a foam base is just how cheap and accessible the materials are. Compared to a more expensive 3D printed base, foam gives you more flexibility to learn, experiment, and improve without breaking the bank. So in conclusion, making a fursuit is hard, especially the foam base. It's one of the most challenging and important parts of the entire build. So go in with the plan. Remember, hours of fursuit making can save minutes of planning. Prototype, develop a process, and always be learning. One of the best things about fursuit making today is just how many resources are out there. Find your favorite artists, study their work, and use real animals as a reference. Finally, enjoy it. Appreciate the time you spend creating and take pride in what you make. So with all that being said, thank you so much, and I can't wait to see y'all again soon.